Okay, so when we talk roles and responsibilities, uh, the reason we bring it up is because if you've read Five Dysfunctions of a Team, what they say is we invert the triangle, and that a lot of the times we focus so much on results being up at the top. We then focus on accountability and then commitment. We focus a little bit on conflict, a little bit on trust. And what I have found in working with teams at quarterlies and week in and week out is that a lot of times where a lack of trust really originates is from a lack of clarity on roles and responsibilities. And so this can happen accidentally, where sometimes an executive says, "Hey, I can't trust you to do your job XYZ." And that executive goes, "Oh, I didn't realize that was my responsibility." And so we just have a inadvertent lack of trust accidentally because there was a lack of clarity on roles and responsibilities. So this is why we focus on it. And the idea is that that then builds trust, which allows us to handle conflict really well, which allows us to commit, to create accountability, and to get results. Okay. So here's kind of the first piece when we look at roles and responsibilities is most of the time people approach it really vague. So this is a worksheet we use with teams to see how specific they'll be. So we'll ask them, hey, what's your role in the company? Or what's your title? What's the role? And what I pay a lot of attention to is the verbs that somebody uses. So do they describe tasks or do they describe outcomes that they're responsible for? Who they're responsible to, is that clear? Is there one person? Are there multiple people? And then where do they go for help? Do they have anything listed down here? Because if you remember, we can have high expectations as long as we have high support in order to create a winning culture. But we have to be able to show that we're not only giving this support, but that the other person knows what that support looks like. Okay. So this is kind of the vague version. Ideally, what we want is it to look more like this. So we want to be able to say, what are the outcome-based responsibilities? Do they know how success is measured, why it matters, and how it gets done? Okay. And ideally list them in order of priority. And there shouldn't be more than 3 or 4. What I also like is using this for a one-on-one. So, hey, I'm going to fill this out. I want you to fill this out about you. I'm going to fill it out about you. And then we're going to sit down and we're going to compare notes and see how similar they are to each other. All right. Because if we're both on the same page, that's a way better jumping off point, at least, than trying to evaluate performance on different expectations. So who are they responsible to is still only one line. And then where do they go for help? I like to say internally, externally, and informationally. So is there somebody internal to the company, somebody external to the company? Is there information, dashboard, data hub, something where they're supposed to go to get this information? So this is the more clarifying version. Again, this is where you're starting with the person. Here's the flip side. If we start with a task or a project, we can look at it through the lens of the different roles that multiple people play within a process. So, you would say, hey, okay, what process are we evaluating, or what thing are we building or rolling out? And what we're looking for is who are the people that are going to be doing the work. So this could be multiple people here, but ultimately, who's the decision maker? This is the person that owns the outcome. And so you'll see some of the correlation here. That person is going to be this person. What outcome do they own, right? So this is from the perspective of the task or the project. This is from the perspective of the person. And so you should start to see these match up. Okay, so one person owns the decision. It can only be one because we don't want this to happen. Somebody goes, "Oh, I thought you were doing it. Oh, I thought you were doing it." It's the same reason you can't delegate to multiple people. It can only be one person ultimately held responsible. And again, it's super important that we hold them accountable to the outcome. Don't hold them accountable to the task or the effort. That's the mistake a lot of people make, is that they get really vague up here and they're like, "Oh, I organize the calendar. I do this." And it's like this vague, ambiguous term. How do I know that you did that well? Which means, how is success measured? How do I know it's done, right? So the language matters a lot here. All right, so one person that owns an outcome, not an effort, not a task. All right, who's consulted, expert, or stakeholder? So this could be owner, could also just be expert, could be more senior to you, could be third-party independent consultant, right? You'll see the correlation again. Where does this person go for help? Internally, externally, informationally. So same thing, you could have those listed down here, right? The other piece that's important to keep in mind when it comes to consulted and informed is the time frame. So when should they be consulting? So is it more of a 10-80-10 where, hey, early on, I want you to consult this person, and then at the very end, I want you to consult this person? Um, Classic example we use is like if you were planning a dinner, you're going to have the chef is responsible for doing the work. You may have a sommelier that is responsible for curating the menu and the wine pairings, and they own the decision around the menu and what it's going to be. It's only one person, it's the decision maker. There could be multiple chef, sous chef, et cetera, that's doing the work. Expert that gets consulted. It might be the somm. It could be somebody else. It could be the chef as well. Like they may get consulted on part of the menu. But then ultimately informed is going to be the guests at the dinner. And so timing wise, I don't want to tell them what the menu is ahead of time. They would also be consulted in the beginning. I need to see if they have any food allergies. So the guests for the dinner are going to be consulted early on to see if there's any food allergies so that we can then create the menu, make the decision, and then have the chefs do the work. Prior to the dinner, though, we also have to inform the guests to let them know where to be and when. All right. So as a leader, an executive, an owner, you're constantly trying to move to the right. All right. In the beginning, you're doing everything. So you're all the letters. But over time, you're trying to move to the right where you probably have a team and you want to have really clear roles and responsibilities that says what they're accountable for, what decisions they own, right? What outcomes they own, that you want to know who's actually doing the work. Could be somebody below them as well. And then you want to live in consulted and informed. So you want to be the person who is the expert and who is kept in the loop. But the timing on these, you want to make sure that you clarify. That's the one misstep I see sometimes when people are using a RACI matrix is, hey, what is the timing for when somebody should be consulted and what is the timing for when they should be informed? And is the deadline clear on making the decision? So that's how you use the RACI matrix in addition to the roles and responsibilities outline when you're trying to clarify the roles and responsibilities for people so that you can then build trust, be better at handling conflict, be able to commit to objectives, create accountability towards those to ultimately deliver results.